Next question was, how do we get the different parts of ourselves to become more conscious, in inverted commas? Is there a way to actually do it, in inverted commas? Or is it down to pure luck whether parts become conscious or not? Well, I think it starts with letting go of hierarchy. Because most teachers, most spiritual teachers, I've said this before in the kind of guru self-talk thing. If you listen to how they talk to themselves, that's how they talk to themselves. And a lot of teachers, how they become spiritually authoritative or how they come into their power spiritually is one of the deeper parts just takes over. So let's say, I've used this analogy before, that you could think of yourself as being like many different parts on the inside. And the parts, and let's say you're in a cinema, and the parts that are at the front of the cinema, right up against the screen, are the least conscious parts, and the further back you go in the cinema, it's just one row of chairs, cinema chairs in the cinema, and you are in each one, or a part of you is in each one. And the one that's closest to the cinema is closest to the screen is the least conscious, and then each one that goes back successively is more and more conscious. It's very easy to kind of feel like, well, doesn't that mean there's a hierarchy? The ones that are at the back, surely they're better than the ones that are at the front, because the ones that are at the back are more conscious. And that's the kind of trap I think a lot of spiritual teachers, a lot of gurus fall into, is that the ones at the back, the deeper ones, just take over and squash the ones at the front. I talked about Krishnamurti waking up every night like a little boy, and you can tell particularly in the way they talk to their students. So for me, that's old. It's out of date. It's an old way of doing things. Maybe it was important at a certain time, but not anymore. Because it's not loving. It's not compassionate. For me, all parts in the cinema, regardless of their consciousness levels, are equal. Each has their place. Because the frontal part, the part of me that's talking to you now, the part that has to interact with the postman and pay the electricity bill and figure out how to do tax returns and figure out how to make videos and that part, that is the least resourced to do what it has to do, yet it has to do it. It's the interface part of me. So to kind of just squash it and make it wrong, you can tell with the expressions like monkey mind, and you've got to dominate your mind. It's not loving. It's not compassionate. It doesn't work either, I have found. So all parts need to move forward together. And getting a relationship with these different parts is crucial. Just kind of denying them and saying, oh, my mind is the cause of all my troubles, so I'm just going to deny it. My spiritual teacher, Barry Long, used to talk about his mind like being a mouse in a mouse hole. And he was like a cat at the edge of the mouse hole. Anytime it came out, he would just sort of swat it. No, I love Barry and everything, but I would not like to have that kind of tension inside me. And be so unkind to another part of me. Because imagine if you met somebody who you decided was not that conscious. Would you be like that with them? Would you be like, I'm just going to dismiss you because you're not that conscious? Come back to me when you've become more conscious. You could say animals are not conscious in that way. So what, do we dismiss them as well? Well, I suppose we do. Everybody eats them. But because they can't walk and talk and they're not like us, and we don't see the self-reflective capacity in them the way we see it in ourselves, Do we just discount them? I don't think so. So similarly, I don't think it's not good to discount these parts of ourselves and deny ourselves and split ourselves up. I mean, we're already divided up enough on the inside anyway. If we start making one part wrong, we give fuel to the other part to kind of go, well, to get puffed up and go, well, I'm the more conscious one. So, no hierarchy. That's the beginning of helping the unconscious parts to become more conscious. Not being in a fight with them, not denying them, not making them wrong, but instead trying to get a relationship with them and compassionately understanding them, understanding their concerns, understanding their fears, and seeing if you can help in some way. If a child came to you and they were terrified, would you make them wrong? Would you go, for God's sake, it's ridiculous. There's nothing to be afraid. There's nothing under your bed, for God's sake. There's nothing in the wardrobe. Would you do that? I don't think you would. And the reason I don't think you would is because you listen to me. And if you listen to me, I think you have a certain sensitivity and a certain amount of kindness and a certain amount of compassion. So you wouldn't do that to a child, but we do it to ourselves. We go, I'm afraid to go to the party. We go, for God's sake, not this again. How could you be afraid to go to the party? You know, it's just, you know, everybody there. Nothing bad is going to happen. You're not going to get killed at the party, for God's sake. What's wrong with you? That's the way we talk to ourselves. And it's cruel. It's just flat out cruel. But because it's just between us and us, we think it's okay because nobody can hear us being cruel. And those parts, if you're cruel to a part of you like that, it recedes, it gets smaller. It doesn't go away, it just comes out the side. You go to the party, you force yourself to the party, you beat yourself to the party, you push yourself outside your comfort zone, which, don't get me started on that. And then you're practically catatonic at the party. You can't talk. You've stressed yourself so much, you've dysregulated your own nervous system so much by forcing yourself in an unkind way to go to something that was distressing for you. You forced yourself. And then you get there and you go into freeze. You can't talk. And then you just have a miserable time. And then you get back in the car or you're back on the way home and then it flips around the other way and you just start giving yourself a hard time about why you were catatonic at the party. So it doesn't work, in my experience. Being unkind like that doesn't work. So what does work is being kind to the different parts of yourself and going, tell me about it. Why it is the party? What is the disturbance? And will tell you, well, everybody's gonna hate me and no one's gonna like me and people are gonna say mean things to me and so on and so forth. Now, that requires a lot of self-compassion on the inside to listen to that and to not go, for God's sake, no one is gonna hurt you. No one's gonna hate you. They're probably not even gonna notice you. Everybody's so caught up with their own stuff. They're not even gonna, to not do that, to just listen and go, yeah, okay. And to gently kind of go, that might be true. I have found that's one of the most helpful things you can say to fearful parts of yourself, to help get them to de-escalate and de-catastrophize, is to not deny. To not deny what they're saying and to acknowledge the possibility that what they're saying might be true. Yes, everybody might hate you. Everybody might gather in a group, point at you and laugh. It's very possible that could happen. But the chances of it happening, probably slim. But even if we say it's 50, there's a 50% chance of it happening. There's also a 50% chance of that you'll just go and you might even have a nice time. You might meet some new people and it might go well, and you might come home and be very glad that you went. So that's a possibility too. And if you've developed a kind relationship with these parts of you, they will trust you. And they will go, yeah, okay. Maybe that's a possibility. Maybe people will be nice to me. Maybe I'll have a good time. And then you can make arrangements. You can say, well, look, we can go, and if you're having a terrible time, we can just leave. We can just make an excuse and go. And it's amazing when you start to take action on these things with these different parts of yourself. When you say, well, what about we do that? It's almost like you can hear them on the inside going, really? You do that for me? We could just go if I feel uncomfortable? And you go, yeah, sure. I don't have to be miserable. But let's go and see. And then if we get there and we don't like it, well, we can just come home again. And then that's all parts moving forward together, because you're bringing deeper parts, kinder parts. But really, it's not so much you're bringing the deeper parts, it's you're the overarching container of all these different parts. And it's you that you're bringing to bear on it. It's you that's bringing the compassion and the love and holding all these different parts. Because the deeper parts might be going, oh, for God's sake, this is all an illusion anyway. It's not real. There's no party, there's no body, there's no people. God, what are we getting so upset about? Which is true, the illusion part, but it's not very kind. So if you start off with this thing of like, I have the capacity to hold all these parts together, and I can hold them all, I can love them all, and I can give them all what they need, because they all need different things. Then each part becomes more conscious, because here's a fun fact. The frontal part, even though it's less conscious, it's used to being less conscious. It's used to making mistakes. Well, you might say, well, the deeper parts, while they're more conscious, they're not free of unconsciousness. And if they make a mistake, or if they discover a bit of unconsciousness, they get very disturbed, because they're not used to it. The frontal part, very used to it. The deeper parts, not so used to it. So they kind of lose their mind a bit. They become very disturbed, and oh my goodness, the basis of my whole perspective on life has been shaken because I've discovered I have a bit of unconsciousness. And the frontal part are like, I do that like every hour. I do that a couple of times every hour. What are you getting so upset about, And it's the same thing, like through you being the overarching, kind, compassionate, loving presence that holds all these, then you can sort of help them all move forward together in consciousness. And that, to me, is a much more holistic, yes, I use that word, holistic way of growing in consciousness, where you're kind to all parts. And being kind and being loving, it's your nature. And I know it's your nature, because I haven't met anybody who isn't their nature. We can all get covered over by unconsciousness, I know. But inside, everybody is doing their very best to be as conscious as they can. I know it doesn't look like that from the outside, but that's the way it looks to me anyway. So it's your nature to be kind and compassionate. So if you use that for these different parts, help to stop the war on the inside, the warring factions, to not get irritated, to not be disturbed when the fears, particularly if you know about manifestation and you can hear a part going, we're going to run out of money. And you kind of know that that's not a very helpful thought for creating money in your life. To not kind of go, just shut up, and you just shut up with that stuff, because you're going to make us run out of money with your fear. to not do that, but to be kind and go, well, it's always a possibility. We might run out of money, but it's also possible that we don't. It's also possible that we become more wealthy, that more money comes to us. That's just as possible. So let's aim for that. When you can do that in a kindly way, across all, it doesn't matter what it is, whether I'm going to get sick, I'm going to lose the person I love, or I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my money. You know, if you could be kind about it, all parts will move forward together in kindness. So that's what I think. That's what I have found for myself. It's most helpful, is to no hierarchy, no part's better than the other, and let's all move forward together in love and kindness.